Okay, in this video we are going to add sprite collision. So let's have a look at what we've got at the minute. We've done tile collision. Now for these videos I'm just going to use the shooter, the maze shooter game, because I just need something that can easily move around and I don't have to be jumping to platforms. So we've got this set up. We've got collision detection. If you've done the platform game, you've got the same thing. You can't go through platforms. You'll fall on platforms. But what we now want to do is be able to pick up objects like coins or other pickups, and we want to be able to run into enemies, which is what these T's were, and get killed. So that's what we're going to try and set up in this video. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Solution Explorer and we're going to open the folder Setup, Loading and Storage and load the asset class. And not the asset class, I'm being mad here. Message class, the message types. So load extra messages types. Now in here there are some types that we built already. So we've got like the view position, which we use to broadcast position to move the scrolling message. There are some other ones there, enemy destroyed, player destroyed. Okay, so we could make use of some of those. But we're going to do the picking up something that's points, so some coin value first. So what we're going to do is just going to add a message type. Now this is pretty straightforward. All we're going to do is we're going to copy the summary comment and the actual message type definition line. So we're just going to copy that, and then we're just going to be just after that opening brace, just going to paste in. It'll obviously moan because we've got a duplicate name, but we're going to change the name of the message type. So let's call it got coin. Obviously, you need to tailor this to what you're doing. I'm going to pick up coins. It's whatever you're doing for your game. Use that name and put it in the new message type part. That's for debugging purposes if you want to see what messages are flying around. And then in the summary thing, we should change the information message. So when we get a coin, we're going to broadcast some points, which is just going to be an integer. So we're going to say int points, and just to make it easy for someone else to use, we're going to say you'll do int message.object value to get hold of the points. Let's make that correct English. Okay, so that's the first job, setting up a message. We're also, when the player's going to hit the enemies, that'll destroy it, but we've got something called player destroyed anyway, so we've already got that one. Okay, the next thing we need to do, let's go to our coin class, or your pickup class, whatever you've got. And we're going to put in to the constructor. Remember, the constructor's the first part. I'll just delete this junk. You won't even have that, I don't think. Well, you might have that, because I think I'll add that in. In the constructor, we're just going to say make the sprite collision active. If you don't do that, a sprite is not part of the collision detection. So obviously if you just want a sprite for decoration, then don't make it collision active, because that actually takes resources up. The other thing we're going to do is really the coin knows what should happen when it gets picked up. So we're going to make a little method called collect. So it's going to be public void collect. It's not going to have any parameters. We enter the left brace, press enter so we can start typing. And all we're going to do is we're going to transmit a message. So message bus.instance broadcast message, and it'll be that new message we just created. So extra messages got coin. Use the picker, and we're going to transmit some points. So if you've got different coins that give different points, then you'll need to make sure that you do a different message. In fact, to help with that, let's make this public virtual void, which means we can override this. So if we want to inherit from coin to make a different type of coin, we can still have this message, but we can change it and make it do different things. Right, so that's one part. You'll see that when I do a pickup in another video. I'll do how to organize pickups of different types. And I'll show you the virtual and overriding virtuals. Okay, but that's just setting it up ready for that if we choose to do it in the future. Right, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play a sound. Okay, now in assets, which is why I loaded assets at the start, in the method called start preloader, there are some sounds that are loaded up that I've taken from asteroids and Galaxian. There's the eating a fruit in Pac-Man, not Galaxian's Pac-Man, extra man from Pac-Man, shoot sound from asteroids, and the explode sound from asteroids. If anyone wants to add any sound effects, I can show them. It's quite straightforward. It's probably got a video on it somewhere. Have a look round on the help system. The key thing is this first bit of text is the name you use to play the sound. Okay, so if I want to pick up a coin and I'm going to use this fruit sound, okay, that's the name I want, fruit. Okay, so I'm going to copy that so that I don't type it wrong. Right, let's go back to coin. So to play just a one-off sound effect, we can just say gm.audiomanager.play effect, and then we put the name of the effect in double quotes. Okay, if you spell that wrong, it won't make a sound. So if your sounds aren't working, check your spelling. I can't remember whether it's case sensitive. It probably is, but I can't remember. So check that as well. The other thing I want to do is we want to get rid of the coin sprite, so we're going to kill it. So when we collect it, we're going to broadcast a message, play a sound effect, and kill it. So it gets removed from screen. Okay. Right, we set up the enemies. So if we go to the enemy. So the enemy class, all I need to do for now, for this one, is just say collision active so that we can hit it. So collision active equals true. Okay. So that one's quite nice and simple. So that's the key thing to remember to do that. Right, now it's the player that's going to interact with these sprites. So let's go and set up collisions for the players. Right, so in the constructor for the player, so I'm just going to put it at the bottom after the set offsets code. I'm going to make it collision active. So that's important so that we're part of collision detection. But I'm also going to make the player responsible for what to happen or what to do when it hits various certain sprites. So I'm going to set it also to be collision primary. There's a lot of things starting with collision, so you'll have to type quite far to get the picker to come up. So I'm going to say collision primary equals true. So what will happen is the game engine, if it detects collision between two sprites, whichever one's the primary sprite, it'll run a routine, a method. Okay, and there are various methods we can use, but we're just doing simple collision detection here. So we're going to say collision callback. It's actually easier to type callback and look for the callbacks. Right, so collision callback plus equals, and I'm going to call it hit something. You can call this whatever you want. If you've already got a name from your design for what you want to happen when you collide, use that. Obviously, this doesn't exist, so I'm going to create it. And there's a nice simple structure to how we work with these collision items. What happens, the game engine will pass us the sprite, and you can see that that's what this parameter here is, called hit. And then we can test it to see what type of sprite it is by saying what class is it, which is quite nice. So we can say if hit is, and so you don't say equals, you say is a coin, then we can do some work. So we put a left brace, so we can say, well, there's a block of things we want to do. So the first thing we need to do is we need to say, right, okay, it is a sprite, but this is a coin sprite. So we're going to make a reference to a coin sprite. So we're going to say coin C equals, and then we're going to cast. And what this tells C# is, yeah, we've got a reference. We know it's a coin reference, which is why we did this hit. So yeah, we know it's a sprite, but treat it as a coin because we want to run the method we just created for the coin. which was called, or something or other, I can't remember what it was called now, but we're going to use it in a sec by using the picker. So we say, okay, we got a reference to the coin. So we checked it was a coin, so we make a reference to the coin. I think it was called collect or something like that. Collect. There we go. Remember the methods come up as purple on the little picker. Right, so we just say collect. We don't have to do anything else because the coin's going to deal with all that. Okay, so that's nice and simple. But we might have also hit, because we made the enemy active for collisions, we might have also hit the enemy. So we're going to say else if hit is enemy, and then we're going to press enter, and then we're going to go left brace. It'll put the right brace in, press enter, and then we can start typing. So for this one, we're going to do it a little bit simpler. And I'm doing it this way so I can show you another way of interacting later on with the enemy. So I'm going to say hit.kill, so kill the enemy because I want it to remove. I'm going to kill the player, so I'm going to say this.kill. So that's going to kill the player. Let's just scroll that up. I'm going to play a sound effect. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to assets so I get the name of it right. I'm going to do the explode one, so we've blown up. So I'm going to copy, explode, go back to player. So I'm going to say gm.audio manager.play effect explode. So that'll be a nice sound effect. And I'm going to broadcast that the player's been destroyed. So I'm going to say message bus dot instance dot broadcast message player extra messages dot player destroyed, using the picker all the time here. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to transmit the position of the player currently. So what I can do, if we've got some lives, which we haven't sorted out yet, but if I've got lives left, what I can do is I can put the player back on the screen where they got killed. Okay, so position 2D. Okay. Right, so that hopefully will make a sound. Let's just try it. And let's just see what we've got so far. See if we've got any errors. So we should have collision detection set up. So we should be able to pick a coin up and it should make a sound. And that's the fruit sound from Pac-Man. And I should be able to hit this T. When I hit it, I'm going to get destroyed. So Mario's going to disappear, and so will the T. But we should get an explosion sound. There you go. So I've got no more control because the sprite's been destroyed. Okay, so we've got a little bit more work to do because we want to react to that now. Right, so the main controller for the game is going to be our game setup. So let's load up game setup. Okay, right. So in order for the scoring to work, we need to keep track of what score. So what we're going to do, we're going to put some fields in at the top of game setup. So we're going to have an integer. We can put the word private. Let's put the word private. Private in score. And we'll have one for lives as well. Private in lives. Okay. Right. So in start game, so when we start the game up for the first time, we ought to set the number of lives that we've got. Okay. So I want, I don't know, let's have 3 lives and we need to set the score to 0 as well. Okay. So we just add that. The other thing we need to do is we need to subscribe to the messages for when we get a coin and when the player has died. So let's do the coin one first. So let's do in the constructor for game setup. So that's the method right at the top with the same name. We're just going to say message bus dot instance dot subscribe to extra message type get coin, got coin. So all we're doing really is we're picking up some points there. We're not doing anything fancy. So let's just say accept points, we'll call it. Right, doesn't exist. So let's go control full stop, generate it. Right, so all we need to do here is just say, right, okay, what points have we got? Let's add it onto the score. That's all we need to do for this. So we're going to say int points equals And if we look over got coin, we did put a little comment, and you can see it says message data is an int message to object value. So that's what we're going to say. We can say int message dot object value. So that'll be the number of points, and we're just going to add that to the score. So we're just going to say score plus equals points. Okay. What will be nice is to display how many points we've got, what our current score is. So we can do that in the logic routine. So if you look to the logic routine, this is where we can draw and update values. So you can see we've already got one that does the high score. So I'm just going to type out gm.textmanager.draw. I'm going to carry on my Gradius font because that's what I use. So I'm going to say the font I want to use is FontBank Gradius. If you want to make your own fonts, you can do that, but it's just like making a super sprite. So I'm going to display score. So I'm going to say score, and then underneath I want the score. So I'm going to do a tilde, which is on the hash key. If you look on the keyboard, okay, so that's shift and hash. What that means is that makes it form a line break, so the text or whatever displays on the next line down. So I want to say plus score. So I'm saying like that bit of text, follow it with score. Then I want my positions. So for this, I'm going to position it at 50 from the left-hand edge, 50 down from the top of the screen. And then I want to set my text attribute. So I'm not going to mess about here. I'm just going to say text at dot top left. Okay. I want to display how many lines I've got, so I might as well set that up while I'm here. So text manager, same system. So draw, font bank. Try and be consistent with your fonts. Don't start being crazy. So lives, tilde, plus lives, just keeping the display simple. This time I want it on the right hand side of the screen. So I'm going to say gm.screen. Oh, I didn't finish off my double quote. gm.screen size dot right minus 50. So that'll be 50 in from the right hand edge. And I want it again 50 from the top. And then the text attribute this time, I'm going to align it top right. So top right. Okay. Just scroll that so you can see it all. So we just font, what we want to display, X position, Y position, how we want to format it. Okay, so that's that. Right, so the other thing we've got to handle is when we get killed, when the player is destroyed. So let's go back to the constructor for game setup and add the other message bus subscription. So message bus.instance subscribe extra message types dot, and it was player destroyed or something like that, player destroyed. And this time what we need to do is we need a method that is going to work out, take lives off, decide whether the game's carrying on and whether to put the player back on. So I'm going to call this death of player, which is quite dramatic. Okay, it doesn't exist, so I'm going to do control full stop. So just double check yourself on these when you're using the auto fix, that its option at the top is actually generate method, because it will switch around, especially if you've done a copy paste operation, because it tries to be clever. So we want the option that says generate method game setup dot def of player. Okay, and there it goes. Right, so a little bit involved in losing a life. So if we lose a life and we've lost all our lives, then it's game over. So we should put a message on the screen to the player. If we lose a life but we still got lives left, then what we're going to do is we're going to reposition the player. Okay. Now, it's up to us what we do when we reposition the player. It can be a standard thing to make a player invincible. Okay. For a short period of time, but we'll look at that in another video. For now, I'm just going to put the player back on the screen, so we won't actually know anything other than the lives have gone down and the explosion sound happened. Okay, but we could do that. Right, so the first thing we need to do is check if we've got any lives left. So we're going to say if lives is greater than 0. So put in my left brace, enter. Then we're going to take the lives off, so we can say lives minus minus. That just decrements the number of lives. Just taking a drink there. Okay, and then we know in the message, so if we move over where it says player destroyed, we need to go and update that. Let's make sure we update that. Let's go, if we do F12, so if you just go up to where it says extra message types.player destroyed, press F12 with a cursor on it, and let's edit this thing because we've actually got the player position. So player 2D position sent we'll put. So that would be vector2 message dot object value. Okay, we're trying to help ourselves. Okay, so I did forget to do that. Right, so go back to that. Right, so in death of player, if we've subtracted 1 from the lives, we need to pick up the restart position for the player. So we're just going to say vector2 pause. I'll call it restart pause because that sounds good. Equals, and then we can say vector2 in brackets message dot object value. So that is just casting the object that we've been given and saying, we know it's a vector2 value. Let's just hold that in a reference to a vector2, please, and we'll call it restart pause. So all we're going to then do is we're going to say new player, and we're just going to pass the data to the constructor. So it's restart pos.x and restart pos.y. And it wants to know what level we're in. So this is a problem because we don't know what level we're in. Well, we do, but we didn't hold a reference to it. Okay, so we have to make a refactoring job. Now, start game is what set up the level. So let's have a look at start game. So that's broken at the minute. So we're just going to go down and fix something else. This is what you do. As things develop, you change things. So here is the line where we create the level. So we just said new level, and we didn't have a reference to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a reference. So at the start of that line, we're going to say current level, which won't exist, equals of a new level. Okay, so we're saying, right, oh yeah, create a new level object, but actually give us a reference to it and we'll call it current level. So we need to make this a field so that we can access it. It's global to the class. We can access it in any of the methods because we want it in our death of player method. So we're going to do control full stop and we're going to say generate field. And you can see it's giving you a little preview of what it's going to look like. So it's going to be private level, current level. That's exactly what we want. So let's create that. So that now exists. So let's just scroll up to the top and prove it. There you go. So it's created it for us. So we've now got access to the current level that we're playing. So we can pass that back to the player. So we can say here, here's your X and Y position, but also here's the level that you're occupying. Okay. And that's all we need to do to respawn the player. Right. If we didn't have any lives left, okay, so we need to do an else, left brace, right, press enter to get our code to work. Then we're going to run a routine called game over, which doesn't exist yet. We could put all the code here, okay, but it's more flexible because there may be different ways that the game can end. It may be that you have a timer and you run out of time and that will make the game end. So you don't want to duplicate code. So what we do is we create one routine. Okay, so let's generate game over. So control full stop, generate method. So it's created it there. Delete the exception line, we don't want that. Now, what I want to do is I want to display a message on screen and then I want to go back to the title screen. Okay, eventually at some point you might want to do some high score stuff like we did in the breakout game, but let's just display a message. Now I could, the easiest way to do this is to create a graphic, generate a sprite and kill it after 5 seconds. That's one way of doing this. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a little message display routine where I'm going to give it an amount of time to stay, and I'm then going to give it a message to display. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say display, and I can use this for lots of different things like end of level, well done, things like that. So I'm going to create a routine called display message. So this is in game over. I'm going to give it a number. I'm going to put 5F because I want it to be a floating point value. And I'm going to give it the message I want to display. So I'm going to display the rather witty message, game over, and then I'm going to put a tilde because I want it on the next line down, sucker. Okay, so display message doesn't exist, so let's do control full stop and get it to generate it. And this is really where the power comes in, because you can see in the preview, it's going to build all our parameters for us. So there it goes, display message. It's giving them really rubbish names, but we'll change those in a sec. So let's delete the exception part. Let's just change these names. So that is the kill time. Killy time. I don't know why I said that. And that is the message to display. We'll call it message. Okay, so what we're going to do is in game over, so we're going to run that display message routine so we get some sort of message on screen. And I'll show you a couple of cool things in that in a second. But after that 5 seconds, that's when I want to go back to the title screen. So I want to set up a delay. So I can do this by using the event manager. I can say gm event manager.delay call. So I want to wait for 5 seconds. And what do I want to call? I want to run our routine called back to title, which ends the game mode properly. Okay, so if you scroll down, it should be the very last routine. So it kills the view manager, gets rid of any messages, any timers, any sprites, any tile maps, and then activates the title mode. Okay, so we're going to do that, and delay call, you can use this all over the place. All right, it's quite a useful little method of the event manager. Okay, right, let's set up the display message. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use the text manager to draw this message on screen, but because we want it to live for a certain amount of time, we're going to draw it as a set of sprites. Now, the nice thing about this is each character of the text that goes on the screen will effectively be a sprite, and we can do things with it. Okay, so what we're going to do first in this display message, we're going to create a dummy sprite, and we're going to call it killer. Okay, so we're going to say sprite killer equals new sprite. So we're not having we haven't got a class for this. We're just going to create a raw sprite. We're not going to add it to the game engine because that's all done for us in the background. Right, so we want it to die after 5 seconds. So we're going to turn on the timer system for the killer sprite. And we're going to say killer.timer.kill after 5 seconds. But we're not going to put 5, we're going to put kill time because we're making this general. Okay, so I've just created the sprite, set up the timer system, then I've said kill after 5 seconds. So that will make sure that this message disappears after 5 seconds. Okay. Right, we're going to make sure that this appears on top of everything. So we're going to change the layer from the default layer. So we're going to say killer.layer equals render layer, not render DL, Eric. Render, I'm always selecting that, render layer dot, and we want HUD. So that's drawn after all the other sprites and all the tile maps that we're using. There are exceptions to that. Okay, so we'll set this up, and then I'm going to put it in the center of the screen. Okay, but I will come back to this and we'll run this and get this working, but then we'll look at how we can make it, well, a little more interesting, and I use that term loosely. Right, so to draw text as sprites, we say gm.textManager, draw as sprites. Okay, so again, we can give it the font bank we want to use. I'm going to use the Gradius one still. The text I want to display is going to be message. The position, right, now I want this to be centered in the screen. So gm.screen size.center.x. Now this is getting quite long, this line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break. So after the message comma, I'm going to press enter. Okay, so it just goes down onto the next line. It's really not happy about that, isn't it? Don't know why it's moaning at me so far. It doesn't matter, we'll keep going. Right, so that's the X position. Oh, it's because I hadn't finished that. Now we want to put the Y position. So we want it in the center of the screen again. So we can say gm.screensize.center.y. That's getting long again, so I'm now going to press enter. So I've just split this over a number of lines. You will see that if you look at some people's code, they'll put every single parameter on a separate line. And there are advantages to doing that because you can put comments on each one if you want to. Right, it's then wants to know what text attributes. So how do you want to display? So we want this centered. So we're going to say text at dot centered. And it then wants to know what Z position. So we're just going to put a really forward facing Z position. So 4,000. Don't put too big a number on that because if you put it outside the clip window, you won't see anything. Right, and then the sprite attributes we want are going to be killer. So it's going to apply all these settings to each one of the characters. So they're all going to die after 5 seconds and they're all going to be rendered on the HUD layer. Okay, so let's run that and let's see what happens when we run out of lives. So I'm just going to run that. So I think I set 3 lives. We should see that on the screen. So you can see score 0, right hand side, lives 3. So let's go and hit some T's. I hope I've got enough T's. I might have to put some more on the timer. So there you go. Lives goes down to 2. Lives goes down to 1. They've got no more lives left. So when I hit this, you get this game over message. Game over, sucker. It's quite small. Okay. But it worked, and we've gone back to the title screen after 5 seconds. So what we're going to do, instead of just using this standard text attribute, text at centered, we're going to create one. Now, I'm going to replace this. So I'm going to say, so where I've put text at centered in the draw sprites method call, I'm just going to put TA message. Okay. So I'm going to define a text attribute. Now, obviously it doesn't exist. That's why it's got the red squiggle. And we've got a funny error message there because it's really guessing at what the hell it's supposed to be doing. So I'm going to say control full stop and I'm going to say generate field. Okay, so that should have created it at the top. So I can scroll up to the top, or I can, while I've got my cursor on TA message, just press F12 and it'll go straight there. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a manual text attribute. And I'm going to show you a few different things here. So we're going to say we want the scale first. So let's make it 3 times bigger than normal. Kerning's just the space between the characters, so I'm going to leave that. If you put negative numbers, you'll overlap the characters, so you can get nice effects from that. I'm going to make the color red. The alignment I wanted centered, so let's do align.centered. Okay, let's run that again. In fact, let's just quit out of that set. I'm just going to modify my tile map to make this easier to test. So sometimes you'll do this while you're testing. So let's go into level data and load up level 1. And I'm just going to put, what was my enemy? I think it was an E, not a pound sign, Eric. I was going to use pound sign, don't know why. Right, so I'm just going to put some more E's so I can test this quicker. So I'm going to put insert on, and you'll see I get a big fat cursor now. So I'll get E, oh, it's capital E actually. So E, 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 E. Let's put a few more. E, E. Press insert again, get rid. You'll notice down in the bottom right hand corner that it's got an INS. So that's in normal text entry mode. If we press insert, it goes to OVR, which is overtype. Okay, so if you're finding that it's doing that, that's the key is insert. But you can check to see if it's active. Okay, so I've just modified the map. Let's run it again. I can get killed quicker, basically. Right, so there you go. I've got my extra T. So I'm going to go T, T, and let's get T, and then let's do this one. Game over, sucker, it says. Okay. So let's do it again. Oh, I don't know why I did the extra ones in for. Not even using them. Game over, sucker. Right. Let me just show you something a little bit more interesting. Go back to the game setup and let's go back to the display message routine. Now, because these are sprites, we can actually move the sprites. So we can give them velocities. So I can say killer.velocity.y equals minus 100. Okay, and what that'll do is that'll make all the character graphics move. So let's just watch what happens this time when I get killed. I'll try and do it quicker this time. That's 1, 2. This is the last death. So I can make it move. And if I time it right, it goes off the screen before I've done it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed that up. And also I'm going to drop it to the very bottom of the screen. So this is for you to play about with. So I'm going to say, right, okay, let's just say the Y position should be screen size dot bottom plus, I don't know, 100 pixels. So let's try that. So it should scroll up from the bottom of the screen when I get killed now. But this is for you to play about with how you want it to work for you. And there you go. So it scrolls up, game over, sucker. There's nothing to stop you playing a sound, playing a music clip, or whatever. There's a good death sound in the game Boot Hill, which I think I've got on the network somewhere, that sound sample. Okay, so that is basic collision detection and reacting to collision detection. Okay, so I'll stop the video there.